I'm a, grad student in data science, which is like a
Okay,
stats adjacent field. And so, but I have a personal interest in philosophy, and so I was watching like some
cool,
YouTube videos on philosophy, and I saw this stream pop up. So I clicked on it, and I found out that this
awesome.
company that you're using to host the studio is like founded right down the street from where I live.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
Nice, very cool.
so
Yeah, that's
I was
so
like, I
cool.
gotta hop in, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome. That's great. And as a grad student, are you a doctoral student in data sciences?
Just a master's
Master student?
student. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, man. That's God bless you. There's people who can do that and think that way, and like every time I'm just like, that is not for me. God did not make me that way. I'm just not the person who thinks like that. So I'm glad there are people who do.
Yeah, I feel very blessed. I enjoy math a lot, so I'm
Hmm.
like one of the people who's like I'm pretty good at it also,
Did
and
you?
so it's like
That's awesome. Did you read my description under my homepage? Like, I've not changed it at all. So once we're done, go read it. It says
okay,
like all these things that this channel is going to be about. I wrote it like very day one, and it's like everything except math. So that's my
okay,
weakest. But anyway,
yeah.
yeah.
So
What do you want to talk about?
I was doing some reading about free will because I think that's a very interesting question. And so I was reading like the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy page just to get like a
Hmm.
good like overview of the topic over the last few
Yeah.
days.
Yep.
And I don't know. I'm thinking I think that there's good arguments to be made that like I'm more partial to like pretty radical or like extreme definitions of free will.
Hmm.
Um, and so what they call like the compatibilist position isn't something that I agreed with, or I found like I agree with both of the premises that like it feels to me as like an agent that free will that I
Hmm.
have free will,
Yeah.
but it also doesn't make any logical sense. Like if I like where does the thing I'm really struggling with is would the cause come from?
Yeah. As an agent.
Yeah, like if I'm if I'm just material, if
Yeah.
I'm a strict materialist, then
Yep.
it has to have
That's
come
gonna
from
be the That's going to be
right.
the problem. Like a materialist is going to have a really hard problem explaining free will and agential causation.
Yeah, and so, but on the flip side, if I'm a because I was raised Lutheran,
Hmm.
Missouri Synod, um, and you know I've read about a lot of different Christian theology. I find it personally
Mm,
very interesting.
cool.
Um, but if I'm if I'm a if I'm religious, if I'm a theist, I would be a Christian
Mhm.
probably. Um, and or I don't think that this argument is like the kind of God I believe in. I thought the conversation you had at the very beginning was very interesting
Mhm.
because um, I also find the Kalam or the cosmological argument to be the most compelling of the arguments for the
Mhm.
existence of God.
Yeah.
Which I would say I'm convinced by that largely.
Mm.
And but that imposes certain like conditions. Like my mom is able to resolve this. I love my mother dearly, but she is able to
Mhm.
resolve this dilemma that I'm experiencing a lot more easily because she doesn't require a certain logical coherence to her
Yeah. Yeah.
theology that
Yeah.
I'm looking for. And so
Same with
maybe,
my mom.
yeah. So maybe the answer is like I should just do what my mom does and not like my mom is she's like a very faithful person. And so she's,
Yeah.
I think, striving towards this thing. And so is it really I don't want to get too
Well,
far afield. They want to talk about free will
well,
with you.
real quick, I will talk about free will, but to answer that or
Yeah.
address that, I think that say let's God made you a certain way. It's intellectually passionate, and the Bible says, well, Jesus himself says the greatest commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and that includes loving him with your mind. And I think that these resources are available in all the 2,000 years of theology that has developed and philosophy as well, along with the church. That you're not going to be in a, let's say, an intellectual desert when you step into like
Yeah.
try to figure out these things. And I think the resources are there. So I don't think that you have to be like, oh, I guess I'll just believe because I need to believe or something like that. I think
Yeah.
that God meets you where you are, and it's going to be like, okay, no, if you, it's just like Thomas, the apostle, like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to see it with my own eyes. Well, Jesus says, well, here,
Yeah.
but yeah, you wanted to get into free will stuff. So,
Yeah. And so I think it's the right because sorry, I got sidetracked. If I believe
not a problem.
I subscribe to theological fatalism, like that argument compels me. I think
Okay.
I've been reading about a lot of ways that you can like kind of challenge like sort of poke holes in it or to like try to
Yeah.
cohere the two halves. But I'm largely an incompatibilist about like divine foreknowledge. Like that argument
Yeah.
is convincing to me. And I don't like for the God that exists to be worth worshiping in any meaningful way. I think it requires sort of like omnipotence, omniscience, and omnibenevolence.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
don't really understand how you can reconcile that with human free will.
Got you. Yeah, man, it's like, it's weird because God has omnipotence, and omnibenevolence and omniscience does not necessitate that he at all times needs to display his omnipotence. So like if God wanted to minimize his power, or let's say just not exercise his power because he wanted to give humans free will, like that's totally open to him. There's no logical contradiction to that. So I think that's what free will shows.
Yeah. And so because I'm compelled by that. Like I saw a YouTube video earlier this morning that was the one thing God can't do. And it was about the like, can God make a rock that he can't lift video
Mhm.
thing. But like as far as my understanding goes, there's a lot of things God can't do. He couldn't have made me a different person because then I
Yeah.
wouldn't have like there's like creation exists and it like exists in this way. And so God couldn't have like made it a different way.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm
And
I'm
so
putting in the because you mentioned the rock that God can't lift. That's a very old puzzle, and I'm
yeah.
putting in the reference for um where Thomas Aquinas discusses that in the Summa. So 125.3, and I think it's in 3 and 4, or 2 and 3. But anyway, I put that in the chat for you to go chase down later.
Okay.
He discusses like, okay, most people when they're advancing this criticism of the rock, the stone that God can't live, it's been around for at least 800 years because
Yeah.
it's around when Aquinas knows this happening. And they're advancing a certain understanding of omnipotence that is mistaken. And so he clears up what omnipotence means. Basically, it's like the idea that omnipotence just means, well, let's forget omnipotence. Let's just talk about logical possibility. And what's logically possible, God can just do all those things. That's
Yeah.
it. Like just God can do all the things that God can do. And if things aren't possible to do, then God can't do things nobody can do things that aren't possible to do. So God would be no exception. But anyway, sorry, that just got me sidetracked.
Yeah. And so the one of the compatibilist arguments that I found more compelling was from Oregon. I only ever
Origin.
seen
Yeah.
Origin. Okay.
Origin. Yeah.
And it was quoted as saying, it will not be because God knows that an event will occur that it happens, but because something is going to take place, it is known by God before it happens. And I find that that's a lot. That's basically, that restates a lot of that addresses a lot of my concerns, is that like knowing something doesn't necessitate it. Like,
Yeah.
I know my brother's going to come home from work.
Exactly.
Today, but I'm not making that happen.
Yeah.
And it still couldn't happen, you know?
Yeah. Knowing where you're born doesn't necessitate where you were born. The problem though is going to be with divine foreknowledge is going to be that God not only knows everything, but he has sovereignty and power over all these things, and nothing can happen which God does not have control over, or at least allows. So that's going to be the key part of the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's another like philosopher of religion I follow online named Keel Andani, and he's an Ismaili Muslim, and he has I think makes a very compelling argument about like God could, like in his conception of of divinity, it's I don't want to do a bad job of representing his argument, but my understanding of it is that God can basically only do one thing, and he creates the first intellect, which creates something else, which eventually creates all of creation. So God is like he's the uncaused cause. And I find that resonates with me pretty well.
Yeah, he's Muslim.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a standard Muslim view, so that's super interesting. I know it's in the logical space, and the standard arguments for God's existence do allow for that possibility. I've just never seen it play out in real life like that, so that's super interesting.
Yeah. So,
and it does. I guess it would be so far. I don't know why I've seen it or thought about it as a serious candidate because it seems unmotivated to me. But you're saying here that it helps to solve these other problems, namely free will and foreknowledge. Like, well, God can only do one thing. He wouldn't have control over this other thing, and you put this other like placeholder God who like did all these other things, and he's gonna be the fall guy for everything.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting argument.
Yeah. It's interesting you raising all this stuff about divine knowledge, divine foreknowledge, because when I first got into grad school, my first year in grad school, I did the stupid mistake of taking a divine foreknowledge or free will class. I launched into the deep end of the pool. Like, I had no idea. It didn't even have a graduate course in metaphysics, nothing like no course in philosophy of religion. I took that stuff in undergrad, but like I'd sped through undergrad as well because I changed my major late. And so, man, I was so unprepared, and we were reading a ton of different articles. And so I'm familiar with all this language from that class, but it was such a traumatic experience as well that I'm like, I was like, everything was way over my head, man. And like, I'll have friends from that class that I still talk to, and they'll be like, you remember this from that class or so-and-so? We read that. And I'm like, I don't remember, man. I'm trying to block that stuff out. But I remember enough, like, like I find the sympathy for radical libertarianism. I sympathize with that. I went into that class, as I recall, a pretty radical libertarian, but now that I'm Catholic, I'm a little bit looser on my libertarianism because I think that it just not even with reference to God. I think with reference only to human character and human nature, our own habits constrain us. So this is just from reading Aristotle, honestly.
Yeah. No,
it's like certain possibilities are going to be closed to you. And so, but that's not an indictment on free will necessarily. It's just a realization, and it's not to welcome in determinism necessarily either, because determinism motivated by all these like scientific cause and effect. Like, that's not necessarily what's going on in the case of habitual, motions. Like, I mean, I guess it's, but you got into that habit because of your prior choices. So free will is still preserved, but it's attenuated free will. It's not a radical libertarianism. That's kind of my view now. Yeah.
I do find that argument or that discussion that Aristotle has about habituation to be very interesting, because like if in a certain sense, if I have free will, I want to go all the way. I want to have like all the free will to do whatever I want. But I just don't like, there are certain things that I wouldn't as a person do and like continue to be like like there's a
like I can't bench press 265 right now. I would love to do that, but given if I build up certain habits, I can do that. But like, it's got to be built up. I don't have the capacity to speak Russian, but I have the capacity to have the capacity to speak Russian. You know what I mean? Like, you have these second order capacities that we have talked about as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think there's definitely something there that I would like to peel back a little bit more. Maybe I can come on in a few weeks and let you guys know what I found out. But
of course, yeah. There's also there's an interesting article by Harry Frankfurt, who's a well-known philosopher. I forget what the article's called, but it's something where he talks about second order will and second order. Let me try to find it.
Yeah,
second order will, second Frankfurt. Let me just look at it. Harry Frankfurt. Yeah. So he's talking about like second order will, second order volition, and so second order will is a will about one wills, a will about my own will. I will that my will does this. And volition is like, I desire that my desires are this way. And so he like breaks it down. It's like a depth psychology where you're getting more and more deeper and peeling back the layers, as you said. And he's the author who also wrote he had a little book that came out of a popular book called On Bullshit, where
Okay.
he attempts to like diagnose the philosophy of slurs and curse words. Apparently, it's like super interesting stuff. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Because I was exposed to some of these Frankfurt cases in the research I was doing over the last few days,
Yep.
and I thought that they raised a very interesting point because, like, I had a philosophy professor in college actually who sort of brought this up. It was an introductory course, so we didn't have a ton of time to get into it. But he brought up the idea that like he couldn't be made to believe something. Like he was a Christian, and he's like, were I tortured, would I could say I'm not Christian anymore, but would that actually be true in my heart?
Yeah.
Like, and so I think there is a sense in which you can't control there are things that I will that I do that I don't do all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so
that
it's like I think that
yeah, that view is I just put it in the chat if you want to take a look. It's called doxastic voluntarism versus doxastic involuntarism, or more precisely, it's indirect versus direct doxastic voluntarism. Voluntarism is just the will. Doxastic just means believe. So using your will to change your beliefs. And I agree with him. I think most philosophers agree with him. Like it's a clever and interesting topic. Like when you get intro to philosophy students thinking about it, it's like I can't change my beliefs by will. It's pretty true upon reflection. Like I can't just make myself believe that the lights are off in this room. I can't just do that. But I can do what it takes to have that belief indirectly. I can go and just turn the lights off, and then I can make myself one that believes.
Yeah. Because I really liked 1984 when I read it as a kid, and there's a very famous passage in it. I don't mean to spoil the book for anyone, but where at the end, one of the characters basically makes the argument that if he can rewrite the past and he can compel you to believe something, then it is virtually indistinguishable from reality. It's like this form of like extreme solipsism. And I think that I don't actually accept the premise that the character makes anymore. Because I don't think you can compel someone to believe in something. Really.
Yeah.
Like in their heart of hearts.
Well, I think probably what he's getting at is not a forcefulness of belief, but still he's talking about persuasion there. But at that point he's using a different approach. That's called the pragmatic theory of truth. I just put that in the chat. The idea that whatever is practical or whatever, or you can say constructivist theory of truth as well. It's not that what's true is true, what is real is true. It's just that whatever I invent and if I repeat it loud enough and long enough, then people are going to believe it. I don't think he's necessarily getting at forcing people to believe it. Yeah, that would be the idea.
Yeah. Okay. I may have to reread the passage, but I can let you.
Well, I haven't read it.
Oh, you haven't? Okay.
Yeah, I haven't read it. Yeah.
If my memory serves, he's the villain. He's torturing the main character at the end. And the example he uses is floating up on a bubble, like a soap bubble. And he says, if I do it and I put it all the records that I did it, and then we torture you until you say that I did it, then as far as anyone else is aware, like from the outside.
Exactly.
And so,
man, that reminds me. I'll give you the last word here in a sec, but that reminds me of the exact same scene of have you ever seen Martin Scorsese's Silence?
Yeah.
The film? Oh, it's amazing. The idea of like apostasy, and are these guys really apostates, or did they? And so there's no real visible signs that they've ever defected from the faith.
Yeah.
But like outwardly, they all appear like they've always, defected, and they've always been apostatized and so on. They've always followed the Japanese ways and so on. But yeah, it's an amazing film. It's one of those films that like, if you're going to watch it, you need to clear your evening and set aside 3 hours and think of nothing else and don't have a phone in your face. Cause like that film will mess you up, but in the best way possible. I recommend anybody watch it, but you need to like prepare and brace yourself. It's an amazing film.
Yeah.
So anyway, last word here.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you letting me talk about this. I'm definitely going to drill into some of these things. I appreciate the suggestions. So thank you. And I'll probably
absolutely. Yeah.
See you next week.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. All right. Thanks,
you.
Connor. It's great to meet you. And I hope to see you next time.
Okay. Bye.
All right. See you. Bye. All right. That was really, really pleasant and enjoyable. So again, this never fails to disappoint. I like seeing people just talk about different things.